This is the Carl Vinson House, located at 421 West Montgomery Street in Milledgeville, Georgia. It's a house many of us likely pass daily, either on our walk to campus, when going to morning grind for coffee, or on the way into town to run errands or grab dinner. But do we notice it? Do we ever stop and wonder about the stories the four walls hold? The importance of this home or any of the other numerous historic homes in Milledgeville? Can you state your name for me and your year?
Miranda Bellflower, first year grad student.
Okay, thank you. Have you ever heard of the Carl Vinson House, or do you recall passing it when going to campus?
I've heard of it. I have driven by it many times.
Can you please state your name, title, and year?
My name is Cassie Arps. I'm a junior and a communications specialist with the Georgia College Leadership Programs.
Great. How long have you worked in the Carl Vinson House?
I've been working in the Carl Vinson House for 8 months now.
With that in mind, do you know much of the history of the house or those who lived in the house since it was built?
I'll be honest, not really. Anything I know is just about Carl Vinson himself, and my boss, Dr. Harold Mock, has told me most of that information.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I myself am guilty of the same thing. I've worked as a communication specialist in this house for the last 3 years, but even I am unaware of the rich history and importance of this building to local history outside of who Carl Vinson was. Even then, I only really knew that he was a congressman that was important to national history because of his involvement in the U.S. Navy, earning him the nickname the Father of the Two Ocean Navy, which we have written on a plaque in the house. But I wanted to know more. With so many of us passing these places that have so much to tell us, I wanted to learn more about this home and those who lived in it, starting the process so that others could also learn who lived there, why they may have been important to history, and much more. But to do that, I needed to do some research and figure out who to ask questions. This is Dr. Harold Mock, Director of the Leadership Programs that currently resides in the Carl Vinson House and an Assistant Professor of History here at Georgia College and State University. He is particularly interested in Carl Vinson as a military figure and is always happy to answer questions about the man.
What is your connection to Congressman Vinson and the Vinson House?
So I personally have no connection to Congressman Vinson, though certainly working in his house, respect him and his legacy. I am the Director of Leadership Programs at Georgia College, and the leadership programs are housed in Congressman Vinson's home, the place that he lived from 1927 until he died in 1981, his Milledgeville house. And in that regard, I feel like I am in some ways the one of the stewards of his legacy at Georgia College and in Milledgeville and in Central Georgia. The home that we're in, the Carl Vinson House, was one of 3 places that Congressman Vinson lived. He had a farm that he lived where he lived south of Milledgeville, and then he had a small home in just north of DC in Maryland. So when he was in Congress, he and his wife stayed there in their small home in Silver Spring, Maryland. But this was the place where he spent the majority of his time, and it's the place in retirement where he spent most of his time. The home itself was built in 1925, and when Congressman Vinson moved into the house, it was about 100 years old. And that was the last major restoration done of the house, was in 1927 when he moved in. But with that said, anybody who visits the Vinson House will see that it is certainly showing its age, but in a lot of charming ways.
Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think there's any stories or artifacts that would bring people to the house? Or
Yeah, I think maybe we could answer that question in 2 ways. I mean, this house is interesting, could be interesting to anybody, even if they have no knowledge of Congressman Vinson. It's a beautifully maintained historic property. It was designed in the style that's called Milledgeville Federal. It's a kind of early 19th century architectural style unique to Milledgeville. It is designed as what's called a 4/4, 4 big rooms downstairs, 4 big rooms upstairs, divided by a hallway that goes down the center. So in that regard, anybody who's perhaps interested in just historic homes and historic architecture could walk through this house and see some really lovely things, particularly with as well as Georgia College has maintained this house. Plaster molding, beautiful medallions on the ceiling, wainscoting that goes around the room, nice, big, thick pine floors. So very beautiful sort of historic home in that regard. On that note, the house was modified when Vincent moved in, and they added a little bit more woodwork to the porch to kind of an Italianate style. So there's a mix of, I guess, architectural styles in this house, but it is primarily a Milledgeville Federal home. So that would be interesting to anybody.
The more I spoke with Dr. Mock, the more I learned about this home and the little details that most would overlook. This room, which now holds an office for a graduate assistant to the programs, was once Carl Vincent's bedroom at one point in his life. It also once held an etching of Carl Vincent's name at a window pane and the date he bought the home and began restoring it, 1925. This room, which now holds Dr. Mock's office, has another curious etching with another name and date, Billy Lozier, 1925. Despite my searches for more information on who this was, I found only one mention of a Mr. Lozier in Milledgeville at the time in the social section of the Union Recorder. One thing I learned in my research that I found particularly interesting was that Carl Vincent ordered his papers and correspondence to be destroyed after his death. Wanting to know more and get an expert's insight, I continued my search and sat down with Holly Croft, the Associate Director of Special Collections in the Ina Dillard Russell Library on the Georgia College campus.
He's got accomplishments that obviously stand for themselves, and I don't think he was trying to destroy anything to keep anybody from knowing. There's no conspiracy to me there. I just think he couldn't figure out what anybody would want them for, because that was kind of how he was. Even though he had this international reputation, he also was still the country guy from Milledgeville, and it would just absolutely stun him. I think that people want to come in and look at his stuff in 2025.
Left with guesses and unsure responses, I was sent to one last source, Dr. Robert J. Wilson III, Professor Emeritus of History. Dr. Wilson, or Dr. Bob as many know him as, retired in 2015 and now lives in Pennsylvania, but still calls himself the hippocampus of Milledgeville and stands as a university historian. When I reached out, I got a response in just a few short days, and he was delighted to speak to me about the house.
Good afternoon. I'm Abigail. It's nice to meet you.
I'm glad you're doing this project, and the other thing, I don't know if Harold put you on to me, but
yes, several people did. Miss Croft, Dr. Dillard, and Dr. Mock all told me to go reach out to you. I'm happy I did.
Okay. Well, I hope I can be of a little help. I will tell you about dating it, and it's your main discovery because you've done some good research. But it's very difficult to date a house precisely. Even when you have the deeds, like if you're doing a title search at the Baldwin County Courthouse.
While Dr. Wilson didn't have an exact date of the home's construction, he did solidify my estimation of when the home was built, the 1830s, and provided numerous resources to find more information on Judge Harris. He even provided some local gossip on Judge Harris's mother from the 1800s.
Abigail Harris was apparently a very striking woman. She was tall, dark-haired, great black eyes, quite a commanding presence. And the story, as it's told, this is Old South story, so it has a kind of a racist tinge to it in some ways, but I think the basic story is true. She was out at Augustine Harris's plantation, which is somewhere west of town. And this was during the War of 1812. Well, the word spread that British troops were in town and everybody should leave the outlying plantations and come into town where they could be safe. So this is probably 1813, 1814, something like that. So Mrs. Harris, this is Judge Harris's mother, was out there on the plantation with her kids by themselves. I don't know where the father was. So she gets this wagon, an old retainer, that was an enslaved person, to drive them into town. And they came to a bridge across Fishing Creek, one of several bridges across Fishing Creek. And there were British troops there at the bridge. Stopped in a burglary for a minute. So the driver pulled out and Mr. Sarah said to the driver, I can't remember, Thomas or something like that, Thomas, drive on. And he looked at her and she says, they're going to kill us, Miss Harris. They need to kill us. And she said, drive on, Thomas. And he did. He was more afraid of her, I guess, than the British soldier. And they just left the turn. They came on into town.
Oh, wow.
That story just really struck me.
In the end, my research and interviews led me to several fascinating findings to help me put together a timeline of who all has resided in this historic home. Judge Iverson L. Harris, born in 1805 in Watkinsville, Georgia, who went on to become Chief Justice of the Georgia Supreme Court from 1866 to 1868, before later dying in 1876. Hansel Hall. While not much is known about the man in recorded history, he was one of Judge Harris's grandchildren and acquired the home before selling it to Carl Vinson in 1925, according to one report. Hall would die in 1942 and leave behind his wife. Congressman Carl Vinson, the father of the two Ocean Navy, who was a Milledgeville native with his parents' home just down the road from the home he would buy from Mr. Hall in 1925. He left behind a legacy not only in national history during his time in Congress in Washington, D.C., but also locally, with some residents even fondly recalling seeing Mr. Vinson often sitting under the tree in the backyard of his home for many years before his death in 1981. Today, this building serves as an office for the leadership programs at Georgia College and State University that holds the motto of leading creatively as they help to foster the future leaders of Georgia. But this house holds more than just what we see on the surface today, as do so many of the historic homes on campus and around the Milledgeville community. There is so much history to this house, stories to hear about those who once lived here. We just have to start the search and ask questions to begin learning more. While we may not learn everything about these homes or the people that once lived in them, it's still important to foster this curiosity and begin asking questions. You may just be surprised by the history, and in my case, local gossip from the 1800s that you find. All it takes is finding that starting place. Good luck.